So, grooming.
So hot right now.
I miss Hot Girl Summer, dude. That's the kind of summer I want to have, not this bullshit. But listen, regarding this whole situation with Chris Tyson, if you're outside of the loop of YouTube drama, which I extremely envy you, as this shit is getting a little bit heavy. You know, I remember back in 2015, the worst that we had was those, fucking pranksters just doing a lot of cringe in public. And we're getting a little bit heavy with the goddamn minors, man. No. But if you want a quick summary, if you're outside, really, you just have this person, Chris Tyson, that at the time was, someone with added responsibility of being an influencer and content creator and such, DMing minors, or at the very least tweeting certain things that they shouldn't be talking with any minor at all, like ever. And there's also other accusations or allegations that are less accusations than actual evidence of this person having certain illegal art, let's call it, of people that you shouldn't be messing with in society. But this story has always been marked by one victim, the main victim about all this, always kind of weirdly defending Chris about not being a groomer and that this is not that much of an issue, okay? But recently, they released a tweet, okay? And let me just read the tweet first and point out the two main contingencies here, the two main focal points that some people are either missing or not really understanding, because there's a lot of psychological factors about taking a step back and remembering certain things that you didn't remember, let's say a week ago, okay? So based on the recent screenshots and messages, and this is the victim, Lava, I would like to say a statement about the Discord, which was a platform where all this tomfuckery was going on, okay? This was 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought I had a good memory of the situation, but I was wrong. After reading the chat logs, this stuff was inappropriate and wrong. I spoke based on my memory of the situation, and I still do not remember these conversations, but they definitely happened. These conversations should not have happened with people at the age I was at the time. I strongly condemn them. I still believe I'm not a grooming victim, but these conversations should not have happened with me or any other minor in this Discord. This is a very confusing phrase, I know, okay? I was a minor in the situation and not the adult influencer who shouldn't have allowed this to happen. I did not see this as wrong at the time. Now, the obvious happened in terms of reactions. The jokes, which I'm completely comfortable with. I'm not that much of a pedantic asshole, and, people saying Chris ran out of money to pay off the kid. It's gonna strike a smile on my face, because that is well put, and it's gonna be traditional in these situations. And who knows, it might be true. But then you have the typical asshole behavior of a questioned victim in this regard. Let me be controversial and actually side with these people. I'm not gonna attack the victim. With a little nuance that my criticism is actually justified, okay? Because number one, Lava was not only saying that he was not the victim, he was calling people who were trying to make this to seem to be an issue when they were trying to protect him or defend him. He called them disgusting, okay? Even though apparently they were right, because this sheds a lot of light on what people were saying. This seems like grooming behavior. This man still refuses to accept what the fuck happened, but calling people disgusting when they're trying to defend you and they might be right, which they are objectively, it's a bit wrong, and especially after this statement where you recognize there was certain things that you didn't remember that makes the situation look even worse. I understand you're a victim and all, but you gotta do a certain apologies here, because being called disgusting is a bit on a no-no, at least in such a sensitive topic as this. Also, all that bullshit that you were talking about these videos who were spreading misinformation, when those two videos in question, I have actually personally watched them, they were not even regarding your situation whatsoever. It wasn't even related to you. And you still haven't taken that shit down. You still have it pinned. And I'm sorry, my guy, you're being kind of an asshole with all this bullshit, because you're directing people to pretty much dislike the video and say this is wrong, even though the video has nothing to do with you. Okay? A little correction here. As I was editing, I did notice that he did post a tweet apologizing for including the wrong videos, which makes it even worse, because the way he did it was not editing the original post or even deleting it and then apologize. He just reposted the original post. But the reality is people will still see the original post and not see the other one. You are still brigading people to essentially criticize the wrong video. So I don't know what you're doing, if it's engagement baiting, or actually not engagement baiting, but essentially just not lose the engagement, you want to retain it. My guy, this is not it. This is even worse than I thought. The wrong solution. Out of all the solutions you could have chosen, this was the worst one, because the damage was done and it's still being done. Watch your fucking speed here, okay? You're not you have to tone it down. I understand you're being a victim, but you're also being kind of an asshole to other people that don't deserve any of this, okay? But here's where I go into your defense, because as I said, you're gonna have the traditional responses when, you know, victims all of a sudden start remembering certain details that they've forgotten, or they just didn't know until now, right? Or they didn't remember. It took you that long to realize what it did was wrong, embarrassing. Imagine taking this long to realize you were the victim, laughing my ass off. Only now you remember. And yada yada yada. A lot of these spread around the comments. Some of the comments were legitimate about how he was, you know, talking shit about other victims and people who were trying to rightfully attack Chris for the shit that she has done. Again, he has to tone it down. I understand his issue here, but people putting this into equation like, now you're remembering this smells a little bit fishy to me and shit like that. Now, I don't know if you motherfuckers ever been through trauma or any kind of traumatic experience in the slightest, but dissociative amnesia is a thing, okay? The fact that this man is trying so hard to tell everyone that he's not a victim is more to himself. This is not really about you or what he puts out on as a tweet, even if it is public. Now, I understand the average Joe is not supposed to be a shrink. I don't expect you to know all this shit, but I would expect you to, after all these movies and shows and stuff, for you to recognize that a lot of times these people are not going to be trying to lie to others, they're trying to lie to themselves. And dissociative amnesia is nothing more than basically you telling yourself over and over that this didn't happen as a coping mechanism because at some point you might believe in it. This tweet pretty much summarizes what I was saying, right? There are likely other things that you don't remember about the situation either. You are very prone to blocking memories that are stressful or traumatic. Not saying that that is the case, but speaking off of memory alone can be unreliable, especially when this was years ago. And not to mention, this is like you trying to remember when you were a baby, right? When your brain is not so well developed, your memories are going to be completely corrupted. They're going to be either cut in half, sometimes even change certain details. You were a kid. You're not going to think of the situation with the same eyes as you do today. It's just the brain trying to cope with this, and you know, it's a kind of a self-defense mechanism, making it seem like it didn't happen, so it becomes it so. But we know the objective reality here. It did happen, and it was fucked up. And this goes along so many other psychological factors, like, for example, positive reinforcement, or what do they call it? Positive visualization, something like that.
In my thoughts, I use the technique of positive visualization,
which is telling yourself something so much that you start believing that's the case. You know, you keep telling yourself you're a good person, so you become a good person. But when it comes to trauma, it's about convincing yourself that you weren't really a victim. And some of you motherfuckers have to tone it down a little bit, and some people are supportive and they understand through comments, you know, that you gotta give him some space. He has to start understanding through his emotions that this is wrong, but you guys gotta give him some space, some time to let him process this. And you think it's because it's public, it deserves my opinion, but guess what, dipshit, it doesn't, okay? Even I myself will say that my opinions most of the times, they don't fucking matter. But I am trying to make this video for you to understand that some things you don't have to talk or argue or even be upset about publicly. Just let him process this, because eventually, you know, as you can see, he's taking baby steps to understand that this shit was wrong, okay? And there's a second factor, which is not really related to traumatic experiences. Can actually happen in the most mundane bullshit, which is remembering past events very differently than what you do now. And this gets backed up by the fact that this guy was, you know, 6 years ago, I think about 13, 14, I don't remember exactly what the age was, but he was extremely young. Obviously, it's a huge gap in terms of life experience. And at 13, or whatever your age was, you're going to view the world quite differently than what you view it right now. And you're not going to interpret the situations the same way. I can guarantee if this shit was happening in 2024 to you, you would understand if you were a child that somehow had the same mentality, or at the very least life experience of a 24-year-old, you would understand I shouldn't be talked to like this. And again, a lot of people, the jokes, I get it, unless you really mean it. There's a possibility that he could be getting paid for this, but very unlikely when you have so much evidence saying otherwise, so I don't think that's really something to be taken seriously. That conspiracy theory is a little bit Alex Jones to me, okay? But this idea that you think like, oh, him going back on his word or, you know, remembering shit all of a sudden differently is very suspicious. Not really. This can happen a lot of times to victims. And it doesn't have to be traumatic, it doesn't have to be anything like this, but he's slowly realizing, and you guys can really fuck off with these comments because it's really not necessary.